I was giving him a massage, until he dropped the towel and asked for something more. The steam from the hot towel curled up like a secret escaping into the dim light of my massage room. The kind of room tucked away in the back of a bustling midtown spa where New Yorkers came to forget the grind of deadlines and subway delays. My hands, slick with eucalyptus oil that smelled like pine forests after rain, pressed into the broad knots of his shoulders. Ryan. That was his name, scribbled on the intake form in a hurried scrawl. 32, architect by trade. Straight as an arrow on paper, but something in the way his breath hitched when I adjusted the sheet told me stories his form never would. I was Alex, 28, the guy who fixed bodies for a living because mine had been broken too many times to count. Gay, out to everyone but still dancing around the edges of caution in a city that preached acceptance but whispered judgments. His skin was warm under my palms, taut like the cables of the Brooklyn Bridge straining against the wind. I worked the heels of my hands down his spine, feeling the give of muscle, the subtle arch as he exhaled a sigh that fogged the air. The room hummed with the low buzz of the city outside, horns blaring faintly like distant thunder, but in here it was just us. The click of the door lock when he'd entered, the rustle of his clothes folding away. Routine. Until it wasn't. He shifted then, a small thing, but enough to make my fingers pause. The towel draped across his hips slipped just an inch, revealing the curve of bone, the shadow of intent. I swallowed, tasting the metallic tang of nerves on my tongue. Everything okay? I murmured, voice low like gravel under tires on a wet street. Another sigh, deeper this time, carrying the weight of unspoken storms. He turned his head on the table, cheek pressing into the padded face cradle, his green eyes catching mine in the mirror across the room. They were the color of the Hudson on a stormy day, turbulent and deep. Alex, he said, my name rolling off his tongue like he'd been practicing it in the shower that morning. I need more than this. The words hung there, heavy as the humid air after a summer downpour. My heart kicked against my ribs, a drumbeat echoing the pulse in his neck, where I just eased a tension knot. More. The implication wrapped around us like the steam, thick and inescapable. I could smell it now, the faint musk of his skin mixing with the oil, a scent that stirred something primal, forbidden. He reached back, fingers brushing mine, not accidental, deliberate. The towel fell away completely then, pooling on the floor with a soft thud that sounded like the world tilting. I froze, hands hovering, the room suddenly too small, the city outside too loud. Ryan, the straight-laced architect with a corner office and a fiancée waiting in some upscale Brooklyn brownstone, was bare before me, asking for a touch that crossed every line I'd drawn in my life. And God help me, I wanted to give it. The spa's back alley door clanged shut behind me as I stepped out into the October chill, the kind that nipped at your knuckles like a stray dog begging for scraps. It was past 8, the neon sign flickering its last goodbye to the day, and my shift had stretched longer than usual because of him. Ryan. His tip sat heavy in my pocket, a crisp 50 folded just so. More than generous but not enough to erase the heat still lingering on my fingertips. I lit a cigarette, the flame dancing in the wind tunnel between buildings, and inhaled deep, letting the smoke burn away the lavender ghost on my skin. Back in my cramped walk-up in Hell's Kitchen, the stairs creaked under my boots like they were complaining about another late night. The apartment smelled of yesterday's takeout, greasy lo mein from the corner spot, and the faint, comforting rot of autumn leaves drifting up from the street. I dropped my bag by the door, the zipper's rasp echoing in the quiet, and peeled off my tank top, tossing it toward the hamper. In the mirror above the sink, my reflection stared back. Dark hair mussed from the humidity, eyes shadowed with that perpetual exhaustion of scraping by in the city that never slept but always demanded more. Sleep didn't come easy. I lay on the futon, sheets tangled like my thoughts, replaying the moment, the towel hitting the floor, his voice, rough around the edges, cracking on the word, more. I pulled back then, professional mask snapping into place like a reflex. Ryan, that's not. We can't. But my voice had betrayed me, soft as the brush of his calf against my thigh when he'd shifted. He'd sat up slowly, grabbing the towel to cover himself, face flushing redder than the brake lights streaming past my window now. Apology in his eyes, but underneath it, a hunger that mirrored my own. Morning light sliced through the blinds like accusatory fingers, pulling me from a dream where his hands were on me instead. Coffee brewed with a gurgle and hiss, black and bitter, steam rising to fog the window overlooking the fire escape. I scrolled my phone absent-mindedly, thumb pausing on a notification from the spa's scheduling app. Another appointment. Him. Ryan Whitaker, 2 p.m. slot. My stomach twisted, a knot I couldn't massage out. The subway ride to work was the usual crush. Bodies pressed too close, the metallic screech of rails, the murmur of half-awake commuters nursing hangovers or heartaches. I leaned against a pole slick with who knows what, closing my eyes to the sway, but all I saw was him. The way his back arched under my touch, the quiet groan that escaped when I hit that spot between his shoulder blades. Straight guys didn't groan like that, or maybe they did, and I just never listened before. By noon, the spa was alive with the hum of dryers and the sharp scent of bergamot diffusers. My coworker Lena, a tattooed firecracker from Queens with a laugh like shattering glass, bumped my shoulder as she passed. "You look like you saw a ghost, Alex. Rough night." Her eyes twinkled, knowing too much from too many shared smokes. "Something like that," I muttered, forcing a grin. She didn't push. Lena never did. She just handed me a fresh towel stack, warm from the dryer, and vanished into the next room. 2 o'clock came with the precision of a ticking bomb. The door opened, and there he was, filling the frame like he owned the space. Ryan. Jeans hugging his thighs, button-down rolled to the elbows, revealing forearms dusted with hair that caught the light. His hair was tousled, like he'd run frustrated hands through it on the walk over. "Hey," he said, voice low, avoiding my eyes as he hung his jacket. "Hey," I gestured to the table, heart hammering a rhythm that drowned out the distant traffic. "Same as yesterday?" He nodded, stripping down with deliberate slowness, each button a soft pop that echoed in my ears. The towel settled around his hips again, white against tan skin from weekends at the Hamptons or wherever architects escape to. He lay face down, arms at his sides, and I started, oils warming between my palms. The silence stretched, broken only by the rhythmic press of my thumbs along his spine, the faint creak of the table. About midway through, his voice broke through, muffled against the cushion. "About yesterday. I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable." My hands stilled for a beat, then resumed, firmer now. "It's okay. Boundaries get blurry sometimes." He chuckled, a dry sound like leaves crunching underfoot. "Blurry. Yeah, that's one way to put it." A pause, the air thickening. "I've been thinking about it all night. About you." The admission landed like a punch, stealing my breath. I focused on the muscle under my fingers, the way it jumped at my touch. "Ryan. Look, I'm not. I'm engaged. Sarah. We've been together since college. She's perfect, stable, the kind of life my parents always wanted." His words tumbled out, laced with the bitterness of bourbon left too long in the glass. "But last night after I left here, I couldn't go home. Drove around the city until the tank was half empty. Ended up at this dive bar in the village, nursing a whiskey, watching the door like some idiot hoping you'd walk in. I exhaled slowly, the scent of oil sharp in my nose. My own history flickered like a bad reel. The ex who bailed when things got real. The family back in Ohio who still thought I was figuring things out. "What are you saying?" He turned his head, eyes locking on mine again, raw and unguarded. I'm saying I don't know who I am anymore. And when you touched me yesterday, it felt like waking up. The room spun a little then, the world narrowing to the space between us. I wanted to tell him to get up, to leave, to save us both the wreckage. But my hands kept moving, tracing lower, brushing the edge of the towel. His breath hitched, a sound that vibrated through me like bass from a passing car stereo. "Tell me to stop," I whispered, voice barely audible over the pounding in my ears. He didn't. Instead, he reached back, fingers curling around my wrist, pulling me closer. The towel shifted again, and this time, neither of us stopped it. We moved like we were afraid the moment would shatter, his body turning under mine, hands fumbling with the hem of my shirt. Skin met skin, warm and electric, the slap of it muffled by the closed door. His mouth found my neck, stubble scraping like sandpaper on silk, tasting of salt and regret. I gasped, fingers digging into his hips, the table groaning under our weight. The city faded, the honks, the sirens, replaced by the wet sounds of urgency, breaths mingling hot and ragged. It was over too soon, a release that left us panting, tangled in sheets and shadows. He pulled me down beside him, foreheads touching, the scent of us heavy in the air. "What now?" he murmured, voice hoarse. I didn't have an answer, not yet, but as the clock ticked toward closing time, I knew one thing. This was just the beginning of the fall. The next few days blurred into a haze of stolen glances and scheduled sins. Ryan booked back-to-back sessions, each one ending the same way, towels discarded, boundaries burned. We'd talk in whispers afterward, his head on my chest, tracing patterns on my skin with fingertips that trembled like he was defusing a bomb. He told me about Sarah, the ring he'd bought in Paris, the wedding venue in the Finger Lakes, the life scripted like a blueprint he couldn't erase. "She's my best friend," he'd say, voice cracking on the edge of a sob. "But this, it's like I've been holding my breath for years." I'd listen, heart aching with the echo of my own closets, the ones I'd kicked down at 22 in a dingy bar bathroom after one too many shots. "You don't have to choose today," I'd reply, kissing the crown of his head, inhaling the shampoo scent of his life outside these walls. But even as I said it, the lie tasted sour. Lena noticed, of course. "You're glowing, babe," she teased one afternoon, wiping down the counters with a rag that smelled of lemon cleaner.
"Spill."
"Who's the mystery making you smile like that?" I shrugged, folding linens with mechanical precision. "Just good clients." She snorted, eyes narrowing. "Aha, and I'm the Queen of England." But she let it drop, for which I was grateful. Secrets had a way of festering in this city, turning sweet to poison. Friday night found me at a dive in Chelsea, the kind with sticky floors and drag queens belting show tunes over the jukebox. I nursed a beer, foam bitter on my tongue, when my phone buzzed. "Ryan, outside, can we talk?" He looked wrecked under the street lamp's glow, tie loosened, eyes red-rimmed like he'd been crying into his rear view. We walked, shoulders brushing, the autumn wind whipping leaves around our ankles like confetti from a bad party. "Sarah knows something's up," he confessed, stopping at a bench overlooking the Hudson. The water lapped dark and restless, mirroring the churn in my gut. "She asked why I've been distant." I lied, said work stress. I sat beside him, our knees touching, the cold seeping through denim. "You can't keep doing this, Ryan. It's killing you." He laughed, a hollow bark that echoed off the buildings. "Killing me? This is the first time I've felt alive." His hand found mine, squeezing until it hurt, calluses rough from drafting tables and dreams deferred. "Come with me this weekend. Upstate. My family's cabin. Just us." The invitation hung there, tempting as forbidden fruit. I thought of the empty weekend ahead, the futon cold without him. What about Sarah? She's visiting her folks in Boston. Guilt flashed in his eyes, quick as lightning over the river. Please, Alex. I need this. Need you. I nodded, the decision settling like stones in my stomach. As we kissed there, under the indifferent stars, the city lights twinkling like distant fires, I wondered if this was love or just the thrill of the drop. The drive upstate was a ribbon of blacktop unspooling through forests turning fiery with fall, the radio crackling old Springsteen tunes about highways and heartaches. Ryan's hand rested on my thigh the whole way, thumb tracing circles that sent sparks up my spine. The cabin emerged from the trees like a memory. Weathered logs, porch swing creaking in the wind, chimney puffing lazy smoke from a fire he'd lit earlier. Inside, it smelled of pine and aged whiskey, the kind his grandfather probably sipped while telling tall tales. We didn't waste time on words. Clothes hit the floor in a trail from door to hearth, his body pressing me against the rough-hewn wall, mouth hungry, teeth grazing collarbone. The fire crackled, pops like gunfire in the quiet, casting our shadows long and wild on the walls. We tumbled to the rug while scratching knees, his weight pinning me in the best way, solid, real. Later, wrapped in a quilt that smelled of mothballs and history, we lay staring at the rafters. Tell me about you, he said, fingers combing through my hair. Before the spa. Before me. I hesitated, the vulnerability tasting like ash. Grew up in a nowhere town outside Cleveland. Dad was a mechanic, hands always black with grease. Mom baked pies that won ribbons at the fair. A sigh escaped, heavy as the quilt. Knew I was different young. First crush was on the quarterback. Kept it buried until college, when I kissed a guy at a frat party and everything cracked open. He listened, breath warm against my temple. Sounds lonely. It was. Still is sometimes. I turned to face him, noses brushing. But you're making it less so. His eyes softened, that green pulling me under like a riptide. I love you, he whispered, the words slipping out unplanned, hanging fragile in the firelight. I froze, heart slamming. Love. Too soon, too dangerous. But my mouth formed the echo anyway. I love you too. We made love again then. Slower, reverent. The fire dying to embers as night deepened. Outside, an owl hooted, lonely call cutting the silence. Saturday dawned crisp, sunlight slanting through pines like golden knives. We hiked the trails, boots crunching frost-laced leaves, hands linked when the path narrowed. At an overlook, the valley sprawled below, rivers snaking silver, hills rolling like a rumpled blanket. He pulled me close, chin on my shoulder. This could be us. Away from the city, the expectations. I leaned into him, inhaling the crisp air laced with earth and his cologne. You really believe that? He didn't answer, just held tighter, as if afraid I'd vanish with the wind. That night, storm clouds gathered, thunder rumbling like an approaching train. Rain lashed the windows as we cooked, steaks sizzling on the stove, butter popping in the pan. Wine flowed, red and tart, loosening tongues. He talked dreams, designing sustainable homes, escaping the corporate grind. I shared sketches I doodled in margins, ideas for a life beyond needing strangers' aches. But as the storm peaked, lightning cracking the sky, his phone buzzed on the counter. Sarah. The screen lit his face pale. He silenced it, but the damage was done. Guilt crashing in like the waves against the shore. I can't do this to her, he said later, pacing the porch, rain dripping from eaves. She's innocent in all this. I stood in the doorway, arms crossed against the chill. And what about us? What about you? He stopped, rain matting his hair, eyes wild. I don't know, Alex. God, I don't know. Then he was on me, kissing fierce, desperate, hands clutching like lifelines. We stumbled inside, bodies slamming together in a frenzy that bordered on violence, release a temporary dam against the flood. Morning brought clarity, cruel as the sun-piercing clouds. He packed while I nursed coffee, bitter on my tongue. "I need time," he said, bag slung over shoulder, "to figure this out." I nodded, throat tight. "Take it, but don't make me wait forever." The drive back was silent, radio off, the space between us vast as the miles. He dropped me at my building, kiss lingering too long. "I'll call." He didn't. Days stretched to a week, then two. The spa felt hollow without his bookings, my hands aching for his skin. Lena cornered me one shift, concern etching her brow. "He's ghosting you, isn't he?" I shrugged, folding towels with vicious snaps. Maybe it's for the best. But it wasn't. Nights alone, the futon mocking me. City sounds a cacophony of what-ifs. I threw myself into work, extra shifts, the burn of overtaxed muscles a distraction. Until the email came, from an address I didn't recognize at first, whitaker_architects@nyc.com. Subject: us. "I can't stop thinking about you. Meet me?" The bar from that night. 9 p.m. Heart racing, I went. The dive was packed, air thick with smoke and sweat. Queens owning the stage with lip-sync fire. He was in the corner booth, nursing a whiskey neat, eyes lighting when he saw me. "Alex." We talked for hours, words pouring like the rain outside. He was ending it with Sarah. Clean, honest, the ring returned with tears and apologies. "It's not fair to her. Or me." His hand covered mine across the scarred table. "I want this. For real." Relief flooded me, sweet as the first sip of cold beer. We left together, arms linked, the night alive with possibility. Back at my place, we explored slow, mapping each other like new territory. Fingers tracing scars, mouths savoring flavors. Dawn found us entwined, breaths sinking, the city waking to our quiet vows. But life, that bastard, had other plans. 3 months in, and New York had softened around our edges, the sharp bite of winter yielding to tentative springs. Ryan's apartment in Soho became our haven, loft ceilings soaring like his sketches, exposed brick warm under morning light filtering through industrial windows. I'd wake to the scent of espresso brewing, his humming some indie track from his playlist, body lean and inviting as he padded barefoot across the hardwood. "Morning, handsome," he'd murmur, sliding back into bed with mugs steaming, the ceramic warm against my chest. Kisses tasted of foam and promise, lazy and deep, hands wandering paths we'd worn familiar. Mornings like that, tangled in sheets that smelled of us, salt and sandalwood, made the world outside feel conquerable. He'd moved out of the shared place with Sarah weeks after that night at the bar. The breakup a quiet implosion rather than explosion. She'd cried, he said, but understood in that bone-deep way of old friends. No villains, just two people outgrowing their story. His ring finger stayed bare, a pale band of skin like a scar fading. Work thrived too. My client list grew, word of mouth from Ryan's circle, designers, creatives who craved release from hunching over drafts. Lena teased me endlessly. "Your glow-up is criminal, Alex. Spill the tea." I'd laugh it off, but inside, it bloomed. This thing with Ryan, solid as the beams in his buildings. One April evening, after a day of rain that left the streets slick and shining, he surprised me. Dinner at a hole-in-the-wall Italian joint in Little Italy, candles flickering in Chianti bottles, the air rich with garlic and marinara bubbling on the stove. "I have something," he said over tiramisu, pulling a folder from his messenger bag. Blueprints, crisp lines on paper that smelled of fresh ink. I traced the elevations, heart skipping. A small spa, eco-friendly, nestled in the Hudson Valley. "For you," he grinned, eyes sparkling like the river at dusk. "Your own place." No more backroom tables. Real space to build what you love. Tears pricked, unbidden. Ryan, this is insane. Insane good. He leaned across the table, thumb brushing my cheek. We're building, Alex. Together. That night, back in the loft, we celebrated slow, wine warming our veins, bodies moving to the rhythm of spring thunder rolling distant. His mouth on my throat, teeth grazing pulse points, elicited gasps that echoed off the walls. We collapsed laughing, sweat slick, the blueprints forgotten on the floor amid discarded clothes. But shadows lingered, subtle as the draft through old windows. His family, old money from Boston, wasps with summer homes and expectations, knew nothing yet. Soon, he'd promise, when I'd press gently over breakfasts of bagels and schmear. Thanksgiving. Full disclosure. I nodded, trusting, though doubt whispered like wind in the eaves. Summer hit like a fever, humid and relentless. The city pulsing with festivals and fireflies in Central Park. We escaped weekends to the cabin, now ours in spirit, grilling burgers that sizzled with char, beer bottles sweating on the porch rail. One night, stars thick as scattered diamonds, he dropped to one knee by the fire pit, ring glinting, simple platinum, engraved inside, "More. Marry me." His voice cracked, vulnerable as the boy I'd first touched. Tears blurred the flames. Yes, God, yes. We made love under the open sky, grass tickling backs, crickets chorusing our cries. Fireflies danced like blessings, the air alive with earth and ecstasy. Fall crept back, leaves turning gold and crimson, mirroring the ring on my finger. Wedding plans wove into our days. Venue in the valley, near the spa site breaking ground. Invites sent to my folks, who after initial shock, warmed with cautious calls. As long as you're happy, son. Ryan's family proved trickier. Thanksgiving loomed the cabin-neutral ground. They'll come around, he assured, packing the car with pies and tension. The drive was quiet, radio murmuring jazz, his hands squeezing mine at red lights. Arrival brought hugs stiff as starched collars. His mom, silver-haired and pearl-necklaced, Dad with a handshake like iron. Dinner unfolded polite. Turkey carved with precision, cranberry sauce tart on the tongue. Then, over coffee steaming in china cups, Ryan cleared his throat. Mom, Dad, Alex and I, we're engaged. Silence fell, heavy as the snow starting outside. His mother's fork clinked, eyes widening. Dad's face hardened, lines deepening like cracks in plaster. Son, he said, voice low thunder. This is a phase. You're confused. Ryan's jaw tightened, knuckles white on the tablecloth. No, Dad. This is me. Us. The argument erupted then, words flying sharp as shards. Tradition, legacy, what the neighbors would say. I sat frozen, heart pounding the rhythm of a closing door. His mom wept softly, dabbing with a napkin monogrammed in gold. We just want you happy, Ryan. I am, he shot back, voice breaking. Happier than I've ever been. We left early, tires crunching gravel, silence thick as fog. Back in the city, he punched the wall, plaster denting, knuckles bloody. I bandaged them in the bathroom light, harsh as truth, antiseptic stinging. They'll come around. I echoed his earlier words, kissing split skin. He pulled me close, trembling. What if they don't? Then we held each other, the city lights mocking through the window, a fragile bubble against the storm. Winter bit deep that year, snow blanketing the streets in hush, but our plans pushed forward. The spa opened in January, a ribbon cutting with Lena wielding scissors like a sword, clients milling with champagne flutes fizzing. Ryan's design shone, reclaimed wood beams, skylights flooding therapy rooms with light, a lounge smelling of fresh herbs and hope. Our wedding was small, intimate, valley barn strung with lights, friends toasting with craft beers clinking, vows exchanged under a arch of wildflowers, his voice steady. You touched me first, Alex, and I'll spend forever returning the favor. Mine choked. From that towel drop to this, every moment yours. The reception danced wild. Lena leading conga lines, laughter echoing off rafters. Night fell, stars winking approval, as we slipped away to the cabin, now renovated with his touches, sauna steaming, bed vast and welcoming. Honeymoon glow carried us into spring, but cracks widened. His parents sent a card, congratulations stiff, no visit. Calls went unanswered, emails polite but distant. Ryan withdrew, sketches piling unfinished, eyes shadowed like the alley behind the spa. One night, after a fight over nothing, dinner late, tone sharp, he stormed out, door slamming echo. I paced the loft, floor cold under socks, worry gnawing like hunger. Hours later, he returned, reeking of whiskey and rain, collapsing into my arms. I saw Dad today, at the club. He disowned me, cut me from the will. The words landed like blows, stealing breath. I held him as sobs racked, body shaking against mine. Money doesn't define us, I whispered, stroking hair damp. We do. But dawn brought resolve mixed with rage. He threw himself into work, designs bolder, clients buzzing. I supported, massages turning therapeutic, easing knots of grief. Yet the strain seeped in, subtle as thawing ice. Arguments flared over small things, forgotten anniversaries, late nights. Sex shifted from fire to obligation, bodies connecting but hearts drifting. Summer sweltered again, the spa thriving, our second anniversary approaching. I planned a surprise weekend at the cabin, no phones, just us. But en route, his phone rang insistent. Work crisis, he claimed, dropping me at the door. Go ahead. I'll catch up. He didn't. Night fell alone, fire crackling lonely, wine turning vinegary. Text. Stuck. Love you. Doubt bloomed, cold as the empty bed. Morning brought him apologetic, flowers wilting in heat. Forgive me. I did. As always, bodies reconciling in urgent thrusts, gasps masking the growing void. Fall leaves fell like warnings, our rhythm fracturing. He buried in projects, I in clients, passing like ships in the loft's dim halls. One evening, coming home early, I found him on the couch, laptop open to emails, his father's name, subject, reconciliation? Heart sinking, I read over his shoulder. Offers, therapy, fixing this phase, inheritance dangling like bait. His reply drafted, considering. Ryan, my voice small, cracking. He startled, closing the screen. Alex, it's not. But it was. The fight exploded then, words venomous. Betrayal, denial, the towel that started it all now a noose. You promised forever. I know, he yelled back, face twisted. But family, it's everything. I grabbed my bag, door banging behind. Streets blurred through tears, subway rattling me to Lena's, couch sagging under collapse. He's choosing them. She held me, rocking. Then let him. You deserve more. Weeks passed in fog. Spa my anchor. Clients' sighs my solace. Ryan's texts pleaded, voicemails hoarse. I ignored, building walls higher than his lofts. One rainy November night, he showed at the spa after close, drenched, eyes pleading. Alex, please, hear me out. I crossed arms, oil scent clinging. What now? He dropped to knees on the tile, cold and unforgiving. I told them no, turned it all down. Because you're my family. My more. Tears mixed with rain on his face. I hauled him up, kissing fierce salt and redemption. Don't make me regret this. Back home, we stripped layers. Wet clothes, old hurts, bodies slamming together in cathartic fury, release a roar against the storm. Winter thawed to spring, scars fading to stories. His parents softened eventually, a tentative lunch in Boston, forks clinking awkward but hopeful. We were wrong, his mom admitted, hand on mine. Summer bloomed full, our life a tapestry rewoven. The spa expanded, his firm greenlit sustainable dreams. Anniversaries marked with tattoos, matching coordinates of that first massage room, ink-stinging sweet. Years layered like city sediment, challenges coming, losses, triumphs, the quiet erosions of time. But through it, we held. Hands linked in parks, bodies entwined in dawn light, the towel a relic laughed over. In the end, love wasn't the drop, but the steady build after, the more we built, unbreakable.